Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. So tonight, we're going to talk about astrology and, about why it's not really an option for you to believe in it. The thing is, like, saying that you don't believe in astrology is like saying you don't believe in gravity. Like, it's not a debatable thing, okay? And I'm not trolling here, I'm being serious. Astrology is a real thing. Now, how you interpret it is up to you. But, it's real. And, I think like people are like, well, like they do the whole like, actually thing. Like, well, actually, there's no reason that, the position of the planets or the stars should impact, you or should have impact on anything. It's like, yeah, no shit. You think you're the first person to think of that? It's not that the planets are doing anything. I mean, yeah, sure, for shorthand, we'll say that they are. But no, obviously, it doesn't really matter where Jupiter is. It's not going to do anything to affect your life or anybody else's. But karma will. And the same karma that puts an entire fucking planet where it is in the sky is going to impact, people on Earth too. Now, it's not a science in the way that, the same way that some other stuff is. Like, it's a cult. So, like, there is a science to it, but there's also an art. So there's nothing really that you can compare it to. Like, you need to keep in mind that historically, there was no difference between astrology and astronomy. They were just the same thing, and, it was only really with the scientific revolution that they started to go their separate way. But Kepler, was, although he had a lot of skepticism about the zodiac, like the 12 sign zodiac we use, he was like kind of the founder of modernist. Well, that's not really true, but he was one of the premier, early modern astronomers, and he was an astrologer. Isaac Newton definitely believed in astrology. It was just kind of taken for granted. Another thing that people always say is twins. Like, what about twins who have dramatically different fates? Okay, well, there's a few things. First of all, even like not all twins are born within a few minutes of each other. Now, I know that there are some, but there are some twins that are born to like half an hour or more apart. So you would expect, I mean, that could be they could be a completely different ascendant, rising signs. They could have been one born at night, one born in the night chart, one born in the day chart. If it's half an hour or more, there's a lot of space there for there to be differences. Okay. Secondly, even a few minutes could make a dramatic difference in the D9 or the D60 chart. Now, I don't use D60 charts, but because it's too hard to figure out, like, it's too like dependent on like what second you were born. But it could make a big difference on the D9 chart, which is, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but that is a real difference there, depending on how much weight you want to put on the D9 chart. But also, it's like, but ultimately, the real answer is it's just one of those things. Like, yes, like, if astrology gets you something that's accurate 80% of the time, then it works. And it's like, yes, there's parts where there's going to be shit where it doesn't work. Like, there's two twins who were born like 30 seconds apart and they have dramatically different lives. I'm not sure how often that happens. It's like, okay, it didn't work. So people have different things to do. Some people say, like, well, this twin gets this side of the chart, the ascendant, and the other twin gets the descendant. There's a lot of ways to get around it, but the truth is it's something that people have different theories, but yeah, there's a problem. Then you can look at my own predictions, my sports astrology predictions. Many of them are still up. They're usually wrong. I've been pretty bad at it, but even there, when I do, like, I just won a shit ton of money this weekend on the Eagles versus the Bears, the Eagles versus the Bears, right? Because it was like, because I did a horary chart. And, you know, just like for horary, you need to, you know, you try it for yourself, but, you know, you need to wait for the right moment. I was just thinking like, because, you know, like I'd been, you know, I saw that you know, I was checking the scores last week and I saw that the Eagles had lost the game to the Cowboys, I think. And I was like, wow, you know, that was like, that was a pretty big upset. I mean, I don't know what the odds were, but I was like, wow, that's, you know, I saw the way they lost. I was like, oh, huh, that's, and then I didn't even know who the Eagles were going to be playing the next week, but I was like, I wonder if they'll lose again this week coming up. So I did a horary chart for the time and place that I was at, and it was something like 3:33. I'm going to say Detroit, but it's actually a nearby city to Detroit, and the date would have been, I don't know, sometime 8 or 9 days ago. I forget. Doesn't really matter. I cast the chart, and then I got back a result, and it was like clear. Like there was no ambiguity. Like it was like a chart was overwhelmingly the Eagles are going to lose that game. So I was like, dude, the chart was just so clear. Like there was and it was a horary chart. So I was like, all right, and I was going to put 500 on it, but I put 250 bucks on it, and I was just like, I'm just going to let it ride. And you know, I didn't really pay it. I mean, you know, I was just kind of like, you know, whatever happens, happens. You know, I thought, you know, like because the Eagles were huge favorites. That's like, or I wouldn't have bet on it, but it was like great odds. Like to bet 250 would win you like over $700. And so the game started. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't watching it, but I went to check, and then like there was one point like where I went to check, and it was like the Eagles basically had it. Like the score was the Eagles. It was the second half. The Eagles were down by 1, but they had just had an interception, and it was like 3rd and 1 on like the Bears 10-yard line. So I saw that. I was like, oh, okay, this game, the Eagles lost. The Eagles are going to win. It's like, I guess I learned the hard way. I won't do this shit anymore. And then I turn it back. I mean, not turn it back on, but I go to check it later, and it's like totally different. All of a sudden, like the Bears are winning by 2 scores. So what apparently had happened is the Eagles had tried a QB sneak, and but it got held up. And while the quarterback was trying to get the ball to the 1st-yard line, some player from the Bears came and stripped them from it. It's like a real freak play. It's like, okay, well, I guess the Stars had their say, huh? And so I ended up winning like it was over $700 on that bet. Now, when it comes to event charts, doing a chart for the event, and I've tried a million different ways, I haven't been able to find anything that's consistent. I've tried so many different methods. So there's maybe like that just means that there's some things astrology just doesn't work for, I guess. But I don't want to talk about the things astrology doesn't work for. That's irrelevant. That's Michael Shermer skeptical bullshit. I don't give a shit about what I can't do, or what, you know, like what I haven't done, or what we can't do or can't show. I want you to deal with what we have shown. Okay? And that's what critics of astrology don't want to do. You know, you get into any kind of debate with critics of astrology, and they'll just give you some retarded shit like my twins, what are my lottery numbers going to be, shit like that. It's like, shut the fuck up. Okay? Shut the fuck up. We're not talking about that. You go talk about that, you know, with, you know, your other skeptic faggots, okay? We're talking to me, we're only going to talk about what we have shown. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. What we have shown. So we're going to do some example charts. Now, I had delayed in making this video because I wanted to wait until I had screen sharing software so I could show you in the charts what I'm talking about. But that's not necessary. If you're interested in enough, these charts are accessible. They're easy to find. You can look them up. You can look them up yourself. And, so I'm not just making it all up. We'll just talk about what the charts show. If you feel like you are either interested or need to verify it elsewhere, go ahead. Like I said, it's easy to find. And so the example charts that we're going to do today is Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump, and then we will, forgot to write about, and then we're going to mention some other people, including myself. Now, granted, you can't look up my chart, but the other people you'll be able to look up. Okay. So first one is Adolf Hitler, and this is such an important chart because if this chart didn't exist, you'd have had to invent it. Okay. Anybody who's studied astrology for like a few hours, okay, if you told them, you gave them 10 charts and then said, which one of these is Hitler? So it's Hitler's chart is in there plus 9 random charts. Every single one would pick out Hitler's chart, like immediately, because that's like how perfect it is. And again, I know what the skeptical response is going to be. Is like, unfortunately, there's no way for us to test this, right? Because pretty much anybody who knows anything about astrology is going to see the chart and just recognize that it's Hitler's. So like, there's no way for me to test that, to like go to like, I guess that what I would have to do is you'd have to find a bunch of people. If you wanted to do a test of this, you would have to find a bunch of people who knew nothing about astrology. And then I guess you'd have to assume that they're telling the truth, because I know what skeptics would say that, oh, these people actually did know astrology. Then you would have to teach them the rules of astrology, what to look for, and then give them random charts with Hitler's put in and say which one of these is Hitler, and then they would all be able to pick it out. But the thing is, unfortunately, though, it's one of those see it for yourself type things. If you're interested, go learn the rules of astrology, and then go look at Hitler's chart, and you'll be like, oh my God, this is like ridiculously dead on. So let's talk about it. When you look at Hitler's chart, the first thing you see is the perfect conjunction between Venus and Mars. In Vedic astrology, which is the tradition I'm most sympathetic to, you can go, by the way, if you want reference for all this, look at Vic DeCara, where he talks about Hitler's chart specifically. He talks about Trump's chart too. He's my biggest influence in astrology, Vic DeCara. Although I don't agree with everything he says, even regarding astrology. That's my citation here, is Vic DeCara. I'm not going to take credit for his work. But the first thing that jumps out is the Mars-Venus conjunction. Now, in Western astrology, there is this, as far as I know, in Western astrology, there's no concept of planetary war. I think in Vedic astrology, it's called Graha Yuddha. I guess India is one of those countries where they do it backwards, like which word goes first, because obviously Yuddha is war. Oh, no, wait, Graha would be planet. Okay, so yeah, there you have it. Okay. So the planet of Venus and Mars are at war. And like I said, this as far as I know, this doesn't exist in Western astrology. In Western astrology, it's a conjunction. It's just a conjunction. But in Vedic astrology, if any of the 5 planets that aren't luminaries, so not the sun, not the moon, but Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, if any of them are within 1 degree of each other, that's Graha Yuddha, planetary war, which when that happens, the stronger planet gets all the strength of the weaker planet. And Venus never loses a war because of its brightness. It's so much brighter than all the other stars, all the other planets and stars at least. And the other planets is more complicated. Now look, you can believe in Graha Yuddha or not. I don't know. It's in Vedic astrology. For me, it's kind of like difficult to tell, when it exists, like when it exists and when it doesn't. But what you're going to see, though, is this is assuming you do believe in Graha Yuddha, and this is a real take of Graha Yuddha. This is an exceptionally strong Venus. And the reason that's such a big deal is because Hitler is a Libra rising, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So this is somebody, the first thing you see with this is an exceptionally strong person. Like, like not necessarily physical strength, but this is a very powerful person. That's the first thing that jumps out to you. And then on the subject of a Libra rising, so you can where your ascendant is going to have an impact in how you look. Usually, I mean there are exceptions, but usually how you look. And most people who know astrology would look at Hitler and think Libra, just by his looks, because the silky thick black hair, is one thing that Libras are known for, is like really good hair quality. A Libra is also going to be somebody who's more of an artistic type, not really into sports, not necessarily a bad athlete, but they're going to be kind of like that. Now, granted, just your rising sign, I'm sure there's plenty of great Libra athletes, but that's something you would expect with that. Another thing about Hitler's Venus is very strong. So his first lord is very strong. So this is a strong guy, right? But it's in Taurus, which is also ruled by Venus. So it's in its own sign. So it's got good dignity. It's strong and it's got good dignity. So there's going to be your artistic skill, your really good hair, stuff like that. But it does have that Mars, which is in Taurus too. So Mars is debilitated in Taurus. So Mars is a malefic, and you don't want a malefic you don't want anything in a bad sign for it. But right on your ascendant, right on your ruling planet, that's like having like a bad Mars right on your ascendant. And that's going to cause health problems and a lot of real ill temperament and feuds with authority and stuff like that. And it's recently been found out that Hitler had some kind of genetic disorder that gave him a micro dick, and like he only had one ball. And that's exactly the kind of thing you would expect from a really negative Mars that's right on, either not on your ascendant in his case, but on his ruling planet. Now there's always going to be things that don't really match up. Like the thing is, you would expect for something like a Mars right on your ruling planet, you would expect a person who's really acidic, which isn't Hitler at all. He was very pale. So, you're going to see some things that don't match. Maybe it's because the Mars is so weak, or so conquered by the Venus that got overthrown. I don't know. You have to look the whole chart in total. This Venus thing, this Venus Mars conjunction, but really we only care about it because of the Venus. It is located in the Bharani Nakshatra. Okay. And so that's Hitler's ruling planet is located in the Bharani Nakshatra. The Bharani Nakshatra is ruled by Yama, the god of death. And this is the worst nakshatra he has. I guess each god has 3 nakshatras or something. I don't know. So this is a guy who's going to be involved. Not just he's going to be strong, but this is going to be a guy who brings death. As if the Mars there wasn't bad enough. But it's and then the Venus is squared, which is the harshest, an opposition is the harshest aspect, but a very harsh aspect with a debilitated Saturn in the 10th house. Saturn, planet of death. So this is, again, really strong, and this strength is going to be used to bring death. Um, the he's got his Jupiter is very strong, and well, yeah, it is very strong because it has a conjunction with the moon, so it's good that just, even though I think it's in like the ninth house or something, which there's nothing really special about that, but when you something conjuncting with the moon gives it a lot of strength. So we've got an applying conjunction to Jupiter in Hitler's one, and so this means that, but it's the moon, the Jupiter. It's a bad Jupiter. Jupiter is your planet of luck and fortune, but his Jupiter is strong because of the moon conjunction. But it's also bad, So it's so this is a guy who, because Jupiter is more your planet of like empathy and compassion. His is in a sign, I think it's in Capricorn or something, and which means it's a bad moon too, actually. The so this is a guy who's going to have real look, when you see that moon moon Jupiter conjunction, this is somebody who's very persuasive, a great like orator and speaker and stuff like that. And again, it's going to be in a bad way, a non-idealistic way, or like, we're not even non-idealistic, but like a non-empathetic, non-compassionate. This is not a compassionate person. And also, I don't have all the Raj Yogas here, but his Venus also, just talking about how strong it is, it has 4 Raj Yogas. So again, very strong. His ruling planet is very strong. His Venus and his Sun actually are also in Taurus. So again, this is a guy who's a bull, slow, steady progress, relentless, determined. Not a guy with great work ethic. He is a Libra, who are they're known for their laziness, and especially he's got an afflicted, his Mars is, his Venus is strong, but it's afflicted. So it's strong, but it's got that Mars all up in its business, which is just horrible. Then it's got that really tight square to Saturn. So it's in horrible shape. So that's why you're going to get like the bad health problems, the shitty work ethic. But he's still relentless, determined, and practical. And Hitler, the thing is, so 1920s German ultranationalism, Hitler knew a lot, and he had a lot of guys around about the occult and stuff like that, about spiritual stuff. He just didn't really take it seriously. That's just not, like, he was only interested in practical stuff. He never had any interest in anything spiritual, or anything like that. Spiritual or metaphysical, like it was just kind of like, if you told him like about something like because again, German ultranationalism in the 20s, they were a lot of guys who were into occult stuff, and there would be people who would tell him like astrological stuff, and he'd listen politely, but it just wasn't for him. He just didn't really connect with it. He didn't really totally buy it. He was only interested in concrete stuff, like what you could see and touch. His ascendant is not only in Libra, but it's in the Chitra. It's in the Chitra nakshatra, which is associated with, art and architecture. And, Hitler was a very good artist, but particularly his skill was architecture. That's like, if you see his art, his architectural stuff is way better than his stuff of people, which is pretty mediocre. Now, like, Hitler isn't, some people like to say, oh, Hitler was actually this great artist. I don't see that. I think he was a great illustrator, but like a fine arts guy, like a Picasso or a Van Gogh, no, I don't see that when I see Hitler's stuff. I I think that if things had gone a different way, he would have made it as an architect or as an illustrator. But no, not a fine artist. Despite I know that he thought of himself that way, but no. But he was a good artist, talented artist, and he personally designed the Nazi symbol. Like the swastika already existed, but he was the one who designed it. Like like the whole like red framing and stuff. And so he was a good artist, and he was like even during the height of the war, was really focused on his architectural plans for the new Berlin that he wanted. So again, that really all fits. He's got a Moon, Jupiter, and Ketu conjunction, which trines to his Venus, his ruling planet, which is again, this is not just like an orator, but a mysteriously powerful orator. And the interesting thing about this conjunction, this Moon Ketu Jupiter conjunction, is I actually have the same thing. And but so you see like well, wait a minute, right? Like Hitler's like this great persuasive speaker. You're making YouTube videos that average 200 views. Well, okay. Again, this is what I'd say. You got to look at the whole picture, okay? Like, and you will talk more about mine later. But Hitler doesn't just have that Moon Ketu Jupiter connection. He has them all connected. He has them all connected, plus all that other shit with his ascendant. So you can't just look at that and say, oh, anybody who's got this conjunction going on, this Moon Jupiter Ketu conjunction, is going to be, some super great influential speaker. Secondly, Hitler's Moon and Jupiter were in. First of all, both his Moon and his Jupiter are much stronger than mine. Mine are both combust, so they're pretty weak. And but they're also in bad dignity, so it's going to be used for like real negative stuff, like like a demagogue type, and which can be negative or positive depending on how you look at it. I don't mean negative in a moral way, although it can be that. It certainly was in Hitler's case, but the so, but yeah, like I said, mine, there's other things you have to keep in mind, but especially the fact that my Moon and my Jupiter are very weak. So you get somebody from me who, I do have a type of charisma in speaking. I'm not like a public speaker, certainly not like Hitler, but I do make videos that some people watch. Some of my videos, a lot of people watch, and nobody's like watching for my looks or anything. And then when I was more when I was younger, but there was a lot of times where I will kind of dominate the conversation. Like people find me entertaining and engaging. Like at the school lunch table, it was usually me who was like the center of the conversation. So even with me, you do see it. And persuasive, I don't consider myself persuasive, but I can think of times where I brought around, like in class discussions, brought people around to my point of view. So even with me, you do see it. With Hitler, you see it like to a more extreme because of there are other factors to consider, but you do see it. One of the things with the bad Mars, because Hitler's Mars is very bad, this is going to be clashes with authority figures, which was the story of Hitler's life, and just an inability to work with others. Everything with Hitler, it had to be his way or no way at all. Even with other countries, he's just unable to work with stuff. The thing because what Hitler had wanted, Hitler never wanted to go to war with Poland. Hitler wanted, Poland to become a satellite like Hungary and Romania were. And then the idea, then that would allow him a free hand to do what he really wanted, was to invade the Soviet Union. So he wanted Poland as an ally. But if you look at what Hitler was offering them, he was offering them, yeah, I mean, what he would have called an alliance, but really being Poland becoming a client state. Like Hungary and Romania in World War II were not really independent countries. They were Nazi client states. And Poland didn't want to agree to that. But that's the only kind of alliance Hitler could agree with. I mean, he was willing to, with Italy and Japan, he was willing to take them on as legit junior partners. But, who knows how long that would have lasted. But like with Poland, they got the Hungary Romania treatment. And then when they didn't go along with it, he got really pissed, and he gave it to them pretty hard. Same type of thing, like Hitler could have held out indefinitely in his war against the UK. Eventually, the thought being eventually the US is going to come in, but he still had Europe. He had conquered most of continental Europe. They had their resources. He could have held out. There would have been risks, but the Nazi Germany could have held out. But that would have meant being like continuing a partnership with the Soviet Union. And Hitler even said that like he knew Stalin wouldn't attack him, but he also knew that Stalin was going to, continue to demand more and more, because Stalin knew how dependent Hitler was on him for raw materials. And that wasn't what Hitler wanted. Hitler didn't want to be dependent on anybody else. So he was willing to risk everything to break that dependency. Can't work. So this is a guy who can't work with others. It's like he just crushes. His thing is to just crush everybody who gets in his way. So now let's talk about Trump. His first lord is in good dignity. His son, I'm actually not. He's a Leo rising. So Leo, first thing with Leo, this is going to be somebody who looks like a lion, cat-like thing, and which definitely is Trump. Got that like lion physiognomy. Another famous Leo rising is Muhammad Ali. Again, just looks like a lion. In Trump's case, though, he's also got Mars in really close to his ascendant. Like not to the sun, which is his ruling planet, but to his actual ascendant. So, and this is Mars it's a malefic, so you want it to either be in its own sign or in its exaltation, which is Capricorn, I believe. But it's in Leo, so it's in a friendly sign. We're going to have some problems here because it's a malefic and it's right up on the ascendant. But again, this is when you combine this with the Leo, this is a guy with a tremendous amount of acid, a very acidic guy. He's going to be really red. In Trump's case, he's going to be orange, which is the color of Leo, by the way. He's also going to be somebody with exceptionally high ambition. Like, this is going to be like a guy who needs to rule and conquer and just take stuff over. It's going to be a very driven guy. He was actually born on a full solar eclipse, which I also was born on a full solar eclipse. Being born on a full solar eclipse isn't necessarily a huge deal, but Trump's case, it's really interesting because he's born on a full solar eclipse and his ruling planet is the sun. So really powerful. I'm the exact opposite. I was born on a full solar eclipse, but my ruling planet is the moon. So his one is the full solar eclipse made him super powered, whereas for me it like makes me like reduces my power, or at least the visibility of it. Now, we're talking about me. You can look at my chart, and same thing. You look at Hitler's chart and Trump's chart. You can tell right away these are special people. To a lesser extent, you can see the same thing with me. This guy's born on a full solar eclipse, and he's a Cancer rising. So this guy is going to be somebody special because he's got the that plus the Jupiter Moon Ketu combination. And I am a really special, unique person. It's just not visible in the same way that it is with Trump and Hitler. But, you know, it's stuff that, like, stands out. Like, as I'm saying, special people have charts that stand out. He's born on an eclipse and it's aspected by Jupiter. So this is a guy who is, you know, he's a rule breaker. He's different. That's also me. Very, you know, like, you know, a rule breaker, very different from the norm, does things his own way. He's also going to be somebody who's very hedonistic. And this is going to be somebody, you can tell from the chart, this guy, he's going to be a CEO, a millionaire, or a president. You know, the chart, like, doesn't really leave any, like, it's clear this guy is a guy who makes it to the top. And Trump made it to the top of the world, you know, so definitely happened in his case. This is going to be a guy who's very brave and victorious over his enemies. You know, for me, like, one thing is, like, so I'm a Cancer rising, and I don't really look like a Cancer rising, but like I said, my moon, I was born on a full solar eclipse. That means my moon is combust. So my first lord is combust, which means, you know, I'm going to take on the physical characteristics of the house that my first lord is combust in. And my moon is in Sagittarius. And I do look like a Sagittarius, like the, you know, sort of angular features, and especially the hairline. The hairline is very, very Sagittarius. I have Saturn that's in good dignity, fully aspect, like a very tight aspect with my ascendant. Now, okay, that one's weird because you expect that person to be tall, which I'm not. But I am the tallest of my, well, I mean, I am the tallest of my siblings, but my sister's a girl, so I don't know if she counts. But she's actually average height for a woman. She's 5'4.5". I'm 1.5 inches below average height at 5'9". But one thing I do have with, like, the Saturn thing, the Saturn connection, is the really big forehead, which is what you would expect from, that's one of, like, a very Saturnian type thing, when the Saturn with the tight aspect with the ascendant. I have my 11th house lord is Mars. I think that's, it's 11th house is my area, so it's ruled by Mars. So I'm going to be somebody who's got a real interest in combat sports and somebody like military matters. 11th house, entertainment, stuff like that. Like entertainment, what you do for fun. And then I have a combust Jupiter. So again, like double, like again, this is somebody who's got, you know, when you've got the combust moon, which is my ruling planet, and then my combust Jupiter, which is my secondary ruling planet. This is somebody with a lot of health problems, a lot of chronic health problems, and a lot of like a not a very strong sense of self. Now, it has changed as I've gotten older, but especially when I mean, everybody's got identity problems when they're young. I had, like, particularly severe ones, but even today, I'm not like a, I'm not I wouldn't call myself a pushover, but I'm also not, like, you know, a dominating type or somebody who's going to intimidate people or anything like that. So, you know, everything with me is more internal. You know, externally, you know, I'm not doing too much. And then, yeah, I don't really have anything else there. You know, I have a 7th house Mercury, so good communicator because it's right near the ascendant. And that's also probably, like, why I have a relatively youthful appearance. You know, somebody with, like, a real Mercury is very ageless. And then somebody who, like, despite all the things, has a lot of good luck because, you know, the Jupiter it's in the 6th house, it's in really good dignity. So you health problems, but no, like, serious health problems. I mean, yes, I did almost die when I was a kid with some disease, but they were able to save me. I had to, like, live in this bubble thing for a few days, but that was when I was really young. And then I actually almost died when I was being born. I had, like, it was a super traumatic birth for my mom. My mom's heart stopped during delivery. My heart stopped. And so like really bad stuff at first, and then after that it was more chronic health problems, but I've mostly been able to avoid serious diseases. I also had some really bizarre, like a bizarre appendix thing where like my appendix was hurting for weeks, even it might have even been months, but they couldn't figure out what it was because they were like, well, if it was an appendix it would have blown up by now, you know. And then when they did the test it wasn't showing a burst appendix, but then they finally, it got to a point where they're like, we got to do like a scan on this, and they saw, they're like, oh no, that appendix is going to burst, it has to come out. But then when they took it out, so it had gotten so big that they actually had to cut out part of my intestine. I've never totally recovered from it, to get the appendix out. And it was supposed to be a 1-hour operation. I was in there for like 5 hours. They didn't tell my mom anything, so she was just sitting there in the waiting room like wondering if I was dying or something, or already dead. And then when they took it out, they were like, what the fuck, man? They're like, this, like the appendix, because when the appendix gets bigger, it gets thinner, and that's why it burst. But mine, as it was getting bigger, was getting thicker. It was getting thicker, and that's why it hadn't bursted. It was just like going to take over my entire abdomen. And they thought like, is there like a tumor or something? Like, what the fuck is this shit? But they found out there was no tumor, but they don't know what it was. They never figured it out. I mean, probably got sent to some lab where it's still being studied. Who knows? And but other than that, yes, a lot of chronic health issues, but nothing like too serious. So yeah. Some other people, again, we talked about Ali. He looks like a lion. He also has Mars in his 10th house. That means his career is going to be associated with violence, and he's going to be very successful at it. And that was Ali, all right, but it's also in Taurus, so it's really bad dignity. So this is going to be a guy who ruffles a lot of feathers, gets in conflict with people, and also, yeah, you maybe like it's his career and he's got successful, but it comes at a horrific price. Look, do you necessarily get that from Mars and Taurus in the 10th house? No. You wouldn't just necessarily see it and say like, oh, this guy's going to be super successful, but he's also going to have brain damage. No. But you would see this guy's going to be very successful. It's going to be in something with conflict, but he's also going to piss a lot of people off and make a lot of enemies. There's other things in the chart that might indicate brain damage. Sydney Sweeney, don't know much about her chart, but she is a Scorpio rising. You can tell from her eyes. She's got very distinct Scorpio eyes. They've got like, there's a certain type of eye. They don't all have it, but a lot of them do. Taylor Swift has the same thing. If you saw her pre the surgery, she's got the very Scorpio eyes. She's a Scorpio rising. Enrique Iglesias, it's not as noticeable with the eyes. With Hillary Clinton's as a Scorpio rising, the eyes are very noticeable. Enrique Iglesias doesn't really have the, at least that I've noticed, doesn't have the eyes, but he's got the mole, which is very often associated with Scorpio risings. They don't all have it, but a lot do. And he also has the physique of a Scorpio rising, which is the really, the long torso relative to the legs and really prominent trap muscles. It'll almost make like the neck look longer, even though it's not, because the trap muscles are so distinct. Now, I haven't looked at their full charts or anything, but it's saying like even with things like physical appearance, you can see a lot. A lot with people. Monica Bellucci, Capricorn rising, and her beauty is a very Capricorn thing. We don't actually know what Kira Lowton's rising sign is, but whatever, she's either an Aquarius rising or just has a tremendous amount of Aquarius energy in there somehow, because her personality is pure Aquarius, but she really looks Aquarius. Really prominent forehead, distinct, jaw and stuff like that. And then Aquarius risings are known as kind of looking otherworldly or alien-like. And so they tend to have prominent chins, like they're triangular, prominent chin and wide forehead. The Girlfriend Guide for Guys also, there's obviously a lot of Aquarius energy in there, and she doesn't. You'd think like with an Aquarius rising, her forehead would be a little higher, but she has it a little bit. That guy, I don't know, that guy who like looks like Satan, but you see him like he's in the manosphere. He's got the goatee. I forget his name. Fuck. I've mentioned him before, but he also really looks really Aquarius. The oh no, I know I'm forgetting something here. Well, well, sorry about that. Casey, he's got a lot of Taurus energy. Like, he's relentless, he's determined, he's methodical. He's not like he's not into like spiritual stuff or anything like that. But it's tough to tell. His looks. I don't see, like, his looks don't really stand out as anything, as being like any particular sign. Babe Ruth, you can just look at him and know this is a Cancer rising, which he is. Round face, like really like round moon, looks like the moon. So it's not always there, but it is there often. And if you really look at it with an open mind, there's no other way to interpret it, that this shit is real. Like, how accurate is it? I don't know. I think if you get a reading from somebody who knows what they're doing and you have the right data, for most people, probably 80 to 90% what they say is going to be accurate. Now, what's the missing part? Is it free will, or is it just the tool just isn't precise enough? I don't know. There is an occult element to it. It's not science in the same way that. So in a sense, okay, it's not the same thing as gravity. Like, yes, if you look at it with an open mind, it's obviously true, but it's not like gravity can be demonstrated 100% of the time in the lab. This is not as concrete. It is still occult. That's all for now. See you in the next.